A Deathworlder Cadet repaired a crashed alien warship in 30 minutes, what took aliens centuries to build. Cadet Maya Rodriguez checked her patrol route display for the third time that morning. Everything showed green. The small training craft hummed softly around her as she guided it through the outer sectors of the Galactic Academy's territory. This was her first solo patrol, and she wanted everything to be perfect. The Academy floated in the distance, a massive structure that housed thousands of students from hundreds of different species. Maya had been there for 6 months now, one of only 12 humans in the entire facility. Most days, she felt like a curiosity. Humans were new to the galactic community, and many aliens still saw them as primitive. Her communications panel beeped, standard traffic update. Maya acknowledged it and continued her sweep around the nearby moons. These patrols were usually boring, which was exactly how they were supposed to be. Nothing ever happened out here. That's when the sky exploded with light. Maya's training took over instantly. She pulled her craft into a defensive position and activated her sensors. What she saw made her heart stop. A warship. Not just any warship, but a Valkyrie Eternal fleet vessel. The massive ship, easily 3 kilometers long, was falling from orbit. Its hull glowed with heat as it plummeted toward the closest moon. Maya had learned about these ships in her history classes. They were ancient, built over 2,000 years ago by the Valkyrie civilization. Nobody built ships like these anymore. The technology was considered lost, and now one was crashing right in front of her. Maya's fingers flew across her controls. She sent an emergency signal to the Academy and pushed her small craft toward the crash site. Protocol said she should stay back and wait for the emergency response team, but protocol was written for normal situations. There might be survivors who needed immediate help. The warship hit the moon's surface with tremendous force. Even from kilometers away, Maya felt her craft shake from the impact. Dust and debris flew into space. She waited for the worst of it to settle, then carefully approached the crash site. The ship had carved a deep trench across the moon's rocky surface. Its hull was cracked in several places, but the structure still held together. Emergency lights blinked along its length. Maya landed her patrol craft 50 meters away and suited up quickly. As she approached the massive vessel, a hatch opened. Several figures emerged, moving in the awkward way that came from sudden gravity changes. Maya recognized them immediately as Valkyrie. They looked like large insects, with 4 arms and crystalline eyes that reflected light in multiple colors. Their normally smooth movements seemed panicked and jerky. "Is anyone hurt?" Maya called over the emergency channel. Her translator implant converted her words into their language. The lead Valkyrie turned toward her. His rank insignia marked him as a captain. "Cadet. You should not be here. This vessel is extremely dangerous. Does anyone need medical attention? Detonates, how big of an explosion? The nearest Valkyrie engineering fleet will arrive in 3 days. 2,000 years of history, lost because of a random power surge. And now one was going to explode because nobody could fix it in time. Can I see the damage?" Maya heard herself ask. The captain's crystalline eyes focused on her. "Cadet, I appreciate your concern, but this is not something that can be repaired quickly. These vessels require master engineers who have studied for centuries. The core systems are incredibly complex. Maybe I can at least stabilize it until help arrives. Perhaps you will understand why this situation is hopeless." The captain moved quickly through several passages, and Maya had to jog to keep up. They reached the engine room, and Maya stopped in wonder. The core was beautiful. A massive crystalline structure, at least 10 meters tall, pulsed with unstable light. Energy crackled across its surface in patterns that seemed both chaotic and deliberate. Surrounding it were hundreds of smaller components, each one precisely positioned. "This is the heart of the ship," the captain explained. "It has maintained perfect function for 2 millennia. But now," he gestured at several sections where the crystal had darkened, "the cascade failure has begun. Once it reaches critical mass, nothing can stop the detonation." Her mind was already working, analyzing, seeing patterns. The other Valkyrie engineers stood nearby, watching her with what might have been curiosity or pity. She had less than 3 hours to do something that should be impossible. But Maya Rodriguez had grown up fixing impossible things. Maya circled the massive crystalline core slowly, her eyes taking in every detail. The Valkyrie engineers watched her with barely concealed impatience. She knew what they were thinking. A human cadet, barely 6 months in the academy, looking at technology that their civilization had spent centuries perfecting. It must seem ridiculous to them. The captain cleared his throat, a sound that came out as a soft clicking through his translator. Cadet Rodriguez, perhaps we should begin evacuation procedures. I understand your desire to help, but those are the primary energy distribution channels. They regulate the flow of power from the core to the ship's various systems. The mathematics involved are quite complex. You see, the energy conversion ratio must be maintained at. One of the Velkari engineers stepped forward. She was smaller than the captain, with lighter colored plating on her exoskeleton. They carry power, like rivers carrying water to different places. And these dark sections here, the ones that look sick. If we could recalibrate the harmonic frequency, and her fingers moved quickly, drawing rough diagrams. The Velkari gathered around her, watching with growing confusion. "What are you doing?" the captain asked. "Making a map," Maya said without looking up. Not of what everything is, but of what everything does. Where their diagrams showed perfect geometric patterns and mathematical formulas, Maya's drawing showed simple arrows and boxes. "Energy comes in here," she wrote. "Goes through this part, splits here, powers these things." "This is far too simple," one engineer protested. "You are ignoring 17 critical subsystems and the foundation. You can't fix a house if you don't know which walls are holding up the roof." Back home, she'd learned to fix her father's old truck by ignoring all the fancy computer diagnostics and focusing on the simple question, what's actually broken? She walked around the core again, this time running her hand along the support structures. The Velkari made alarmed sounds. "Cadet, you must not touch the heat should be spreading evenly throughout the system, but the failure has disrupted. Like a clogged pipe." She didn't need to understand the mathematics. She needed to know what was broken and why. Finally, she stepped back and looked at her completed diagram. It was rough, almost childish compared to the Velkari's sophisticated displays, but it made sense to her. She could see the flow of energy, could see where things were going wrong. "Okay," she said, "I think I understand the problem." After 30 minutes of looking at a system that our engineers study for decades. "That makes more heat. The heat damages more crystal. It keeps getting worse. A feedback loop. It must be replaced, and we do not have replacement crystalline cores available. The energy needs to flow from here to here, right? But the damaged crystal is making it go wrong. So what if we give the energy a different path, routed around the damaged sections? Every component is essential. The designers spent centuries. We call it redundancy. What if we bypass it? It was designed to be decorative, but theoretically. You are suggesting we bypass 2,000 years of engineering with improvisation. We have 2.5 hours remaining. What do you need? I need conductive wire, magnetic clamps, something to use as a heat sink and welding equipment. Even if we can route power around the damaged crystal, he said quietly, the heat buildup will still be a problem. The crystal normally absorbs and redistributes thermal energy. Without that function. She was already thinking through the problem. Back home, when engines overheat, we use coolant and heat exchangers. Same principle should work here. We have standard repair supplies, but I am not certain they will be sufficient for what you are proposing. She felt frustration rising but pushed it down. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. When you don't have the right tool, you make do with what you've got. I need to get some things from my patrol craft. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Maya climbed inside and started pulling apart her own ship's non-essential systems. The backup power relay cables would work better than the Velkari's thin wire. She grabbed coolant packs from the emergency kit. Her uniform jacket had metallic threading woven through it for temperature regulation. That could serve as additional conductor material if she unraveled it. Her hands worked quickly, gathering everything she could spare without making her craft unable to fly. She made 3 trips, carrying armloads of equipment back to the engine room. The Velkari watched in growing amazement as she dumped her collection on the floor. "You are cannibalizing your own vessel," the captain asked. "Borrowing parts," Maya corrected. She picked up her jacket and started pulling at the seams. The metallic threads came loose with some effort. "I can replace all this later. Your ship can't wait." Maya directed them to strip the insulation from the power cables while she mapped out the bypass route. The structural housing around the core was indeed conductive, just as the smaller engineer had suggested. Maya traced the path with her fingers, calculating distances and connection points. "Here," she said, pointing to a spot on the housing. "We'll connect the first cable here, then run it along this path to bypass the damaged section." Those components were never designed to carry power. Heights had never bothered her. Growing up, she'd spent summers helping her uncle repair cell towers. This was nothing compared to working 100 meters above ground in the wind. Maya began attaching cable to the housing, using the magnetic clamps to hold everything in place. It wasn't pretty. The cables hung in loops held together by clamps, spare wire, and in some places the metallic threading from her jacket, but it was functional. "This is madness," one engineer muttered. "This is problem-solving," the smaller engineer replied. She was watching Maya work with clear fascination. She treats the ship like a living thing that needs healing, not a sacred artifact that must be preserved perfectly. The energy needs to flow. The crystal is broken, so the energy gets trapped. We're giving it a new path. It's not elegant, but it doesn't need to be elegant. It just needs to work. They were beginning to understand her approach, even if it went against everything they'd been taught. An hour passed, then another. Maya's arms ached from the physical work. She'd climbed all over the massive core structure, connecting cables, testing connections, adjusting placement. The Velkari engineers assisted, following her instructions even when those instructions seemed to violate their understanding of proper engineering. "We have 45 minutes remaining," the captain announced, his voice tense. Maya climbed down from the core and stood back, studying her work. The bypass system looked like a mess, cables and clamps and improvised connections wrapped around the ancient crystalline structure. But as she traced the path with her eyes, checking each connection point, she felt confident it would work. "The power flow will be less efficient than the original design," the smaller engineer said, consulting her readings. "But the system should stabilize." "Theoretically, someone needs to monitor the system as it comes online," Maya replied. "If something goes wrong, I'll need to adjust it in real time. Besides, I know this system better than anyone right now. I built it. Maintain communication channels. Let's see if this works." Captain Velkeros approached slowly, his crystalline eyes reflecting the glow of the core. He stared at the bypass system, the tangle of cables, clamps, coolant packs, and the power relay from Maya's patrol craft, all wrapped around his ancient, sacred vessel. "This should not work," he said quietly. "But it does," Zixtara replied, consulting her instruments. "The power distribution is actually more balanced now than it was before the failure. Some systems that have been dormant for decades are coming back online." "How long will it hold?" the captain asked. "Until your engineering fleet arrives," Maya said. "Maybe longer. The relay will eventually burn out, but the main bypass should stay stable. You'll want to do proper repairs, obviously, but the ship is safe now. We thought them primitive, inefficient. We had to make things work with what we had. Wire, tape, spare parts from other machines. Dad called it creative problem-solving. Teachers called it making do. It worked either way. You are saying that you learned to repair our most advanced warship by fixing broken ground vehicle. Your ship is incredibly sophisticated, but at its core, it's still just a machine that needs energy to flow correctly. Same basic principle as that old truck." By the time Maya returned to the station, her achievement had become legend. The human cadet who fixed an eternal fleet vessel in 30 minutes using spare parts and improvisation. The reaction was mixed. Some alien officials were furious. Maya had violated numerous protocols by approaching the crash site alone. She'd touched sacred Velkari technology without authorization. She'd bypassed safety systems that were in place for good reasons. Others were fascinated. Engineering professors requested detailed reports of her methodology. Students from various species wanted to understand how she'd solved a problem that should have required centuries of expertise. 3 days later, Maya was called before the Academy Council. The chamber was massive, with seats arranged in a circle for representatives from dozens of different civilizations. Maya stood in the center, feeling very small and very human. Chancellor Morthos, a tall being with translucent skin, spoke first. "Cadet Rodriguez, Your actions have created quite a debate within this institution. Others believe you should be commended for saving lives and preventing catastrophic damage. Before we decide, we would like to hear from Captain Velcaros. Honorable Council, Velcaros began, I have spent 143 years studying the engineering of eternal fleet vessels. I have dedicated my entire life to understanding and preserving these ancient ships. And in one morning, a human cadet taught me something I should have learned decades ago. We became so focused on perfection that we forgot the fundamental purpose of engineering, to solve problems. More than that, it revealed something we had forgotten. Our pursuit of perfection made our systems fragile. A single failure cascades because we eliminated all the redundant, inefficient backup systems our ancestors once included. I have analyzed Cadet Rodriguez's approach in detail. She did not see our ship as ancient or sacred or complex. She saw it as a system that needed help. She applied principles that humans developed on their homeworld, a planet so difficult to survive on that they call it a death world. Even their plants can harm them. They learn to adapt quickly to improvise solutions, to make things work under pressure because hesitation meant extinction. These skills, this practical, intuitive problem-solving, this is what we need. You are suggesting that humanity's challenging origin world gave them abilities that more advanced civilizations have lost. We have become so theoretical that we have forgotten how to simply fix things. More significantly, she was offered a new position, consultant to the Galactic Engineering Corps, with a focus on practical problem-solving and repair techniques. 6 months later, Maya stood before a classroom of 30 alien engineering students. Species she'd only read about in textbooks now sat in front of her, waiting to learn. Today's lesson is about troubleshooting, Maya began. Not theory, not perfect solutions. Real troubleshooting, how to fix things when you don't have ideal conditions or proper parts. But Professor Rodriguez, what if we do not have the correct components for a repair? Let me tell you about the time I fixed a 2,000-year-old warship using parts from my jacket. The Velcari crew returned to the ship cautiously, as if they expected it to explode at any moment. Maya sat beside her makeshift control panel, monitoring the power flow. Her body ached with exhaustion, but she couldn't stop smiling. Captain Velcris entered the engine room first, moving slowly toward the core. His crystalline eyes reflected the steady pulse of light from the crystal. He stared at Maya's bypass system, the cables, the clamps, the parts from her patrol craft all woven together in what looked like organized chaos. "This should not work," he said quietly. "But it does," Maya replied. Zixtara and the other engineers followed, carrying scanning equipment. They moved around the core, taking readings, examining every connection. Maya watched them work, seeing the confusion on their faces grow with each measurement. "The power efficiency is actually higher than our projections suggested," Zixtara announced. "The bypass is routing energy through paths that we never considered. Some of these conduits haven't carried power in centuries, but they're functioning perfectly. They included redundancy and backup systems everywhere. But over time, you forgot about them. You focused only on the primary systems because they were perfect. You didn't need the backups. When the primary system failed, you thought the ship was doomed because you'd forgotten how to use anything else. But all the pieces were still here, waiting to be connected in a different way. You used our structural housing as a conductor. That material was considered purely decorative by modern engineers. First the Academy's emergency response team, then a Velcari engineering fleet that had been diverted from another assignment. Engineers from both groups crowded into the engine room, all wanting to see the human cadets' repairs. Maya explained her work to them, but she could see the skepticism in their reactions. Some took detailed scans and notes. Others simply stared in disbelief. A few of the Velcari engineers appeared offended, as if her improvised solution was insulting to their ancient technology. "This is temporary, of course," one senior Velcari engineer declared. He was older than the others, his exoskeleton darker with age. "We will need to implement proper repairs as soon as possible." Master Engineer Talkful, the readings suggest that this bypass system is remarkably stable. It may not require immediate replacement. It cannot possibly maintain long-term functionality. They tried to find flaws in her system, weaknesses that would require traditional repairs. But the bypass continued to function perfectly. On the fourth day, Maya received a summons to appear before the Galactic Academy Council. She put on a fresh uniform and traveled to the main council chamber, her stomach tight with nervousness. She'd broken numerous protocols by boarding the crashed ship. She'd violated safety regulations by staying aboard during the activation. She'd cannibalized Academy property, her patrol craft, without authorization. The council chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in a circle around a central platform. Representatives from dozens of species watched as Maya entered. She recognized her Academy instructors, several Velkari officials, and the Academy's headmaster, a wise old being from a species called the Thundari. Maya stood on the central platform, feeling very small and very human. Headmaster Thundari spoke first. Cadet Rodriguez, you stand before this council to address your actions during the incident involving the Velkari vessel Eternal Memory. Do you understand the protocols you violated? Do you understand that your actions could have resulted in your injury or death? I knew the risks, but I also knew that doing nothing would definitely result in disaster. Sometimes you have to break the rules to do the right thing. A council member from the Zarathi species leaned forward. You claim to have skills that allowed you to repair technology that Velkari master engineers could not fix. That seems rather arrogant for a first-year cadet. Everything there tries to harm you, the weather, the animals, even some of the plants. Humans survived because we learned to adapt quickly and fix problems with whatever we had available. We didn't have time to develop perfect solutions. We needed solutions that worked right now. She treated our ancient vessel not as a sacred artifact to be preserved, but as a machine that needed help. Her approach was unorthodox, but it saved 2,000 years of history. The principles she used, practical problem-solving, redundancy, adaptive engineering, these are concepts our civilization abandoned long ago in pursuit of perfection. Perhaps we abandoned them too soon. I must admit, though it pains me to do so, that the humans' repairs have proven more stable than anticipated. We attempted to improve upon her work, to bring it up to proper Velkari standards. Every change we made decreased efficiency. Her improvised system is, somehow, superior to our planned improvements. You will receive an official reprimand for protocol violations. Maya's heart sank. However, you will also receive a commendation for exceptional problem-solving under crisis conditions. Furthermore, Captain Velkris has formally requested that you be assigned as a consultant to the Velkari Engineering Corps. Your species brings perspectives that the galaxy needs. You see solutions where others see only problems. That is a valuable gift. Most were older than her, many already had advanced degrees, but they all listened attentively as she explained basic troubleshooting techniques. The first question you should always ask, Maya said, drawing on the display board, is what does this component actually do? Not what it's supposed to do according to theory, but what function it serves in the system. Once you understand function, you can find alternative ways to achieve the same result. But what if we don't have the proper components for the alternative solution? Then we get creative, she said. That's what humans do best. We work with what we have, we adapt to our circumstances, and we find ways to make things work. Not because we're smarter than anyone else, but because we learned that waiting for the perfect solution usually means waiting too long. Learning that sometimes the best engineering wasn't about building perfect systems, but about building systems that could survive being imperfect. The galaxy is full of amazing technology, Maya continued. Ancient ships, powerful computers, incredible machines. But all of them can break, and when they do, you need to know how to fix them with whatever you have on hand. That's what I'm here to teach you, not advanced theory or complex mathematics. Just the simple art of making things work. Her people had spent millennia learning to survive on a planet that didn't want them. Now that same survival instinct, that same creative, adaptive, never-give-up approach to problems, was spreading through the galaxy. And somewhere out there, the eternal memory sailed on, held together by spare parts, human ingenuity, and the simple refusal to accept that something couldn't be fixed. It wasn't perfect, but it worked, and sometimes that was enough.